internet for anybody that wants to know how hard it is to get some things changed. Should have gone through that process because we had nothing but industry support. We actually had to call some of the industry that were there to not send so many representatives because the Senate and the House didn't want to hear that much testimony. We had no negative testimony, and the thing barely passed.
Okay. And then, are you guys getting a ton of harvest reports in the spring as well for all of these clone dealers, along with all of the registrations?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, there's a staff probably up to here.
Wow.
And then there's what we figured out was 1,100 registrants. They'll have to file 3 forms. And usually they file them 4 or 10 times. By the time it's all said and done, that's a lot of people. But there's definitely a certified clone thing would be great. It'd be great for the university to take it on. You know, if you had a certified clone just for, yes, we're selling a healthy plant, that'd be one thing. You know, and it's just like the nursery program would run, rather than something with mites on it or whatnot, or just an unhealthy plant. Then also, then there's the environmental thing is going to go over 23, and then you have a problem with that. So this is just a review for people that know how the Certified Seed Program works. This kind of addresses your questions. You know, this is how to get into the program. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time on that, but it is the AOSCA, OECD, RFC growers, where the seed would need to be produced, and in order for the department to recognize it, has to have a seed tag that we can track through the system. Why would you grow certified seed? Well, variety performance. Right now, you know, everything is basically just grain and fiber. But, you know, I mean, if you have a mixed seed that you've grown and harvested, and who knows what's going to happen with it compared to a solid variety, you know, that it makes no sense not to have good for a bag of seed to start with. So, this is just the whole process again. You know, I think I've heard nuclear seed before. It's been a while, but you know, this is important for people to realize. You know, breeder seed plants every class of seed, and if you have that 3-mile isolation, you can maintain the variety's foundation just by flipping it. So you can also have a greenhouse full of seed that you've produced, and you can go straight to certified. So you can maintain your variety in the greenhouse as breeder seed, and just always take it out to the production field where you only need 6/10 of a mile of isolation. But you plant the seed, it's one-time use. Otherwise, it's gone. So in this year we had 6 varieties that we're approving: Enola, Orgeon, dual-purpose, grain fiber. These are coming from Poland. The Polish Institute has been the biggest player in this program. The first year we had some Italian stuff, but that was brought in by one guy. And now the Polish Institute is throughout the program. And we also have the CRS1, which is a grain variety from Genetics International in Canada. And B11, dual-purpose grain fiber, possibly CBD, from just kind of startup in Hotchkiss, Potent. And then we have one Medicine Mother, Mountain Floral Botanicals, dual-purpose grain CBD. And BC Star, Grow Hemp Colorado, dual-purpose grain fiber CBD.
And these are the ones that were all accepted that passed?
Yes, these are approved.
Oh,
yeah, these are approved. So this is all the ones that have been approved in the last 3 years.
Way below 0.3 for CBD. It varies. Female is 8 or 9%.
16
and pollinated will never be over 4%. Just with any genetics.
Yeah.
For going forward next year, you mean, or what?
So bad.
Oh, of what's being grown here? Just some seed fields on one of them that I'm aware of, a couple of them that I'm aware of, and you know, none, 0. A couple of those are brand new varieties. You know, they're not even on the OECD seed scheme list yet. They registered here before they did their reports.
Did you have any that failed?
Of course we did. We had no. This is just about seed. So those are those varieties that were just on that list. And then if you so good, you know, we've approved it. You know, great. But under the Colorado program, you have to produce seed in Colorado for commercial sales. Right? That's the way it works. We don't bring in seed and give it to growers. We've never done that. So it's great that we have them approved, but what do we have seed in the bag of, right? So what do we have seed in the bag of? There's only all these zeros, you know, they don't have a seed production field this year. The two with X's have seed production fields this year. So, you know, I don't know what happens past that. All I know is I need to know in order to issue tags. So that stuff, you know, it all has to be cleaned, has to make germ, has to be bagged and packaged and all that. That's where we're at. And then, you know, I'm just gonna throw that out there one more time, that if you don't have a CDA approved certified seed tag on your bag of seed, it's not certified seed. And there's a lot of people that still say they're selling certified seed, and I get calls probably weekly. You know, somebody says they're seed certified, well, they're not, and it is misbranding. And the misbranding under the Seed Act is up to a $2,500 fine per incident. So if you have a bunch of bags of seed laying around, you can get charged $2,500 for every bag. And if anybody's buying seed in a plastic baggie that doesn't have any label, I would say you probably shouldn't do that.
Probably not a good idea.
Verbal contract and cash and all.
Terry. Oh,
Yeah,
you're
so
funny.
this is what the tag actually looks like. This is kind of a milestone.
Okay, that's
We
what I
printed
need a
tags
picture
this year.
of.
Not very many, but we had our first tags actually printed, and that's what they're gonna look like. So. And I kept this funding slide around from last year because, you know, we suggested that we would collect money back. It doesn't sound like we're gonna be able to do that unless we figure out how to do it through rules and whatnot. But it was something that we thought about before. And then we said, can we do it, can we not do it, we don't know. And it's probably going nowhere. But there's ways you can kind of creatively think about how to fund this program. Because I mean, right now it's like one umbrella, but it's mandated to be self-funded, but then it's like, what's the break here? You know, what do I do, what do they do? You know, where's it at? And there's issues. So here's my trial locations and grants, like, asking what failed. So you can see, yeah, variety 3 failed, variety 7 failed. One of them, it's a beautiful variety. I mean, it was a very nice plant type, and it just has, it's not quite there. Because, you know, there's a lot of clay in the THC level, and there's a couple plants here and there in a row that were huge, and they tested way off the chart, so it just drug it all down. There's nothing to do with it. So one of them failed, another one failed because it had email issues. It's not quite a variety. There's 2 or 3 different types of females within it, so I had to say, you know, you can't describe it. It has to be 95% true to type. There's no way to rogue it, which one is which, so that one, you know, could be certified either. So those are just the 5 locations, and what those show are the planting dates and the sample dates. You go back, please. You're trying to wind me up on the.
She's racing right
so
through.
Anyway, we started planting May 10th. And we had one location that got planted way later because the land, they had hail and they replanted. It was kind of late doing, and I also had shoulder surgery in the middle of that. So I had two trials planted for me by an inspector this year, and we did a really good job with that. And then I had a late entry out of the greenhouse that kind of skewed stuff back. You can see, is there another slide? Yeah, so I mean, no, the first one. It's really, it's really nice to see this stuff because, I mean, you can see these different locations and the sampling date. But this variety 2, 61 days from seed, and 91 days, you know, I want to see what it does over time, but we have just tremendous genetic diversity out there. And these, you know, we got a little grain variety like this, and then we've got another one that was like 140 days. And I was like, this thing's toast no matter what we do with it, because you can't make seed on it in Colorado, you know, but it was supposed to be a CBD variety, and it finally made seed. I mean, to go back and get a good read on it with the other ones, especially because I planted it 2 weeks later, was taking me clear into October, which, you know, you're not going to have a seed crop like that. So I think a lot of it was figured out of the greenhouse too. So unless somebody has specific questions. Yeah, so what else did I do? I went out and walked all the Colorado Seed Growers Association hemp seed fields with Rick Novak, or the regional field inspector for training purposes. And when I say that, I will say that I was trainer. I was doing the training. So, I mean, we're all learning this together, and, you know, they have people that, you know, they're just remote, they're given a job, they've never seen it before, they never walked it before, all they know is it stinks, you know? So anyway, that, I've been running around talking a lot, there's a lot of requests, there's probably 2 or 3 requests to talk monthly anymore,
Yeah.
somewhere in the state. And you know, basically, we have Dwayne, myself, and Maureen, and Jessica, just trying to figure this all out together. And because there's so much going on in real critical times, you know, if somebody has to be out, somebody has to step up. I've been doing a lot of that too, so. And I organized this tour for the Southern Seasons Group, which a couple of people here in the room were kind enough to host tour spots for us, tour visits. That was a good deal. There was, I think, 35 people, all from the southeast. And you know, they've never seen hemp, they don't know anything about it. All they know is it's becoming the buzz thing, and it's coming on. And I gotta say that to come out and spend 11 hours or so driving all around the state, making 7 or 8 stops, and you see everything that's going on, it's a pretty impressive tour by the time the end of the day comes. These guys, you know, they were blown away. They didn't know what to expect. And you know, most of them don't even know what CBD is. They know very little about anything. All they know is if it's something that they can sell seed of, you know, they want to do it, you know, it's their seed. Anyway, and because of the compliance email stuff, and I kind of got involved with that when I was back out of the field. You know, reports are coming in, and you start seeing all the issues, and somebody has to be told about it. And so that's a lot of those are coming from me.
Love that thing.
So I just have a couple of slides. That's again, it's an earthquake planner.
Love that.
Plant heavy. Let's go back to the next one. So this is actually from last year. I don't have a lot of good pictures from this year, and I haven't even had a chance to go through my pictures. But that just shows you the kind of thing we're doing compared to, you know, 5 foot centers, Christmas trees. So.
You walk a pretty straight line then.
Really straight.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just gonna highlight this one because these guys actually should have seed in the bag. These guys brought in the variety last year, but they didn't put it in trial. This year it came through the trial. So this is a picture in Fruta with the guy. He was real happy about his variety. And I was sitting there saying this thing is late, it's spindly, there's no seed, hasn't flowered yet. I don't think much of it, but he, you know, went through the hoops. He went through the hoops. He's got it there. And if they germ, they have seed in the bag for this year. And it'll be right there with everybody else that's certified seed. Next slide. So this is the same variety, I think the last week of September, or maybe the first week of October. And what a monster. I mean, there's no walking down those roads, right? Not one is planted like
Wow.
that. So it was probably a good week over when it would have been harvested, I'd say. Because, you know, the seed is starting up.
Go back just real quick. Sure. Notice on the right-hand side, when Terry talked about difference in varieties, there you can see a green variety.
Yeah. By the time I was getting the last samples on probably 2 or 3 of the varieties, this other one was basically seedless because the birds had eaten it all.
Oh, damn
dropped.
birds.
Yeah, I mean, that thing's got a seed head like that on it.
So from a farmer standpoint, when he's buying, and this is part of what creates our problem, he buys a variety and somebody sells it to him a 60 to 90 day variety, big window already. And then he gets a variety and he doesn't know what he's got. And it turns out to be a 130 day variety while he's trying to catch up with harvest reports. And so, you know, part of this is the immaturity of the industry, it's the lack of certified seed. But diversity, you can see right here in this picture of genetics, that creates issues for all of us.
That's driving the workload for Marine on those.
Driving the workload for us and the farmer.
Did you find it seasonally, like this year and last year, it was cooler and overcast in September, statewide? And I saw a lot of people pushing their harvest dates out because of that. They just weren't developing in September.
Yeah, we did have a fair amount of that. We did.
I just want to have a comment on the last picture. So on one of our farms, we would have one plant that looks like that, it'd be 12 feet around. Is that one plant, or is that
No.
multiple plants?
It's multiple places.
That's just
So
one
that other
plant.
picture, the other picture
Oh,
where
it's
the
the
guy
whole
was
row.
standing there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of the genetic pool, is according to Dwayne, that first plant is a number of plants, correct?
No, that is a row.
Okay, so
That's-
that first
Yeah,
plant
there's
we're
4
looking
rows
at,
planted there.
is that first plant we're looking at one plant or multiple?
I would say multiple.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably getting 6 or 8 plants in a foot, and I
Mhm.
pour it in.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't thin everything, we thin a couple rows here and there maybe.
What's
if
your
it's
row
hard.
spacing for 30 inches?
30-inch rows, it's grown like corn, or potatoes up in the valley. So I mean, it's not hurting for fertility. Then here's a seed field, that we were out in, I was out in, and just Rick Novak and Russell, who's here in the back of the room.
Mm-hmm.
So this is seed that, depending on how the germ comes out, there should be seed in the bag on this one. That was lightly dressing, I believe. I like this picture, it's got the American flag in it. This is down in Rocky Ford, just to see where this industry is going compared to, the backyard, cutting plants, hanging them on the fence. And now you're seeing these huge acreages, really formed, dialed in. And so and this is what I was blown away by this. I'd not seen this before. There's people out there, they've modified combines, that's CBD harvest right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. So there's a season's tour in Fort Collins and just a rare smile.
I will vouch for that.
I think we're done, right?
Okay, so, yeah, thank you, Terry.
Thank
That's
you,
great.
Terry.
Yeah, okay,
Awesome.
so, right now, we want to, we still have a half hour left, and a little over, and we want to be able to give the committee, an opportunity to present any agenda items that they have that they want to discuss. And then also, an opportunity to give feedback, just hear from you. So, would you like to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
So, this will be a little long-winded, but it's really important, and we've already talked about the importance of this topic, which in one word is transportation. And this started when we've had different discussions as a processor of transporting hemp, finished products, and it's very gray. And then I had a discussion with Laura in May about this, and then she came to visit us, and we furthered the discussion, and we looked at the marijuana industry, what they do to transport. They have cars that are registered that have video access and pretty strict reporting requirements. And then that led to Laura inviting me to give a presentation at CDPHE, and we had a very good discussion there. Part of it was about transportation issues, and we got to figure this out. And so that was about 3 months ago or so. Yeah, so I've been giving this a lot of thought and had an idea, and it's been brewing for the last couple of months. So I want to share it with the committee, and it has a lot of validity in it. This is such a big deal, and nobody's quite sure how to address it. So I'm just going to share this with you, and if you guys don't mind, I'll get on the whiteboard, write down some ideas. But the point of it is, how can we standardize transporting hemp and its products in a logistical way that's credible, that is traceable, that doesn't burden any agency with a lot of paperwork, and it can actually be paperless, and it can be very elegant. And the concept is to go online and say, I'm a farmer. You go to the application, and I've got 20 tons or 200 tons of fiber, and it's baled, and I want to transport it to point A to point B. And there's a calculation that shows how much you would pay. And for fiber, it might be $1 a ton or whatever, very inexpensive. You pay your fee, you get a tracking number, you transport your hemp from point A to point B. The system knows you're doing it, you've got a number, and you can have your tag, which we have from CEA now, but it all becomes paperless, because if you do get pulled over, it's trackable and it's registered to go from point A to point B. So that's from the farmer point of view. If you want to transport your goods to a processor, you have an opportunity to process this into different products, and it can be seed, or it can be products from fiber, or it can be CBD related products. So you've got concentrated oil, or you've got concentrated distillate or isolate, and you want to transport it from the processor to the production facility to make product. So you go online, you have the quantity of what you got. I got 25 kilograms of crude. You check the box, you check the amount, you pay a fee, and it'll be more based on the concentrate. So it's actually a method of generating income for the authorities to set up this state/national system. And when this comes about, and you've got a truckload of isolate or concentrate or whatever, and you get pulled over, you've got a tracking number, you paid your fee, you're in the system, you don't get calls from the authorities, it doesn't bother anybody. It's totally legit, it's totally online, and it's very elegant. So the categories would be something like this. Bulk biomass. 2, seeds. And if you're transporting seeds you get pulled over, they could be marijuana seeds, they could be hemp seeds, but if you register, you know, you don't need to have this intense tracking system like the MED world. So, extractable flour. Flour. Okay, then we've got trimmed flour, like we were talking about. And then finally, we have extracts. And that includes crude oil, distillate, and isolate. And you would check the box and you would pay a fee accordingly. And then 6, finished goods, or something. These are just ideas. So the concept, set up a system, go online, you're transporting hemp-related products, you fill out the form, you get a tracking number, it's all in the system. The authorities can see the movement of product around the state or around the country, which generates really important data for all of us. And everything's legal, everything's above board, it's paperless, it's quick, it doesn't tax the authorities, and it just gets done. To set it up is another challenge, but it's just a recommendation how to deal with issues that we've all been trying to figure out for years now. So anyway, that's my suggestion.
I would just add in there that I think we're going to need for number 5 extract on processed but an unfinished product. Is that what you define it as, Jeff? Unfinished product, right? So
well, that's the crude distillate.
yeah,
Right.
when you do that first round of extraction, you're going to have THC concentration above 0.3%, right? Like upwards of 5%. That is technically, by definition, a marijuana product. And if you have more than 2 ounces with you, that's like
Over the legal
under
limits.
definition, not good, right? But even though it came from a legitimate hemp source and is going to go into a finished product as a legitimate hemp source, that technically is a marijuana product. I think for total protection on that, we need to get some statutory language in there that protects that unfinished product when it's above 0.3%.
That's why this whole discussion is being had, because as a processor, you process hemp that's totally legal, that tests out at less than 0.3, you concentrate it. The crude can be 2 to 4% THC, but how do you get that crude legally from point A to point B? It's hemp, you got your registration, you get pulled over, and all of a sudden you're illegal.
Are you aware of the work groups that MED is holding for testing?
No.
I'll forward to you, it should be on that. That's one of my lists of statutory language changes, is that specifically, and that falls within this whole area that we need to work on in that work group.
And this should be where the MED and the hemp industry works together.
And MED's holding those work groups, so.
Correct.
Yes, an interagency group. We hosted the first one here, MED facilitator, CDPHE participated, so we have interagency work group looking at this.
Who oversees the program?
Well, that's a great question. When I had the discussions with Jeff and Laura, you know, that was brought up. I'm biased, being on the hemp committee. Let's come up with a solution out of this committee to recommend to CDPHE, to the state, and vet it, and you know, who knows who's going to be the ultimate authority. In a perfect world, it's all done online. It's.
We can get our own online stuff with that thing now.
I know.
That's what I'm saying. By the time this would be done, we'd have federal legal, have this potentially federal implications.
Yeah, but you have to understand, Graham, this.
You said we have $500 in our checking account?
But I'm not gonna bring it up
We have
here.
$500 in our,
I have like the best
in our
solution
cash fund, use.
ever. Not that we don't want them tracking us.
I just wanna
No.
caution everybody that before we go really far down this road, there are some clear jurisdictional lines that we all need to think about.
Yep.
With respect to how far and what we can do under the Industrial Hemp Act versus what CDPHE can do. And
Exactly.
you know, there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about, a lot of stuff we can bat around, but at the end of the day, we're constrained by statutory language in our rules. Those things are not stuck in stone forever. But at this point, there are some very clear jurisdictional lines, as I see them, with respect to processing, transport versus cultivation, where sort of our bailiwick lies versus others. So just to bear that in mind while we sit here today.
Yes, to address Graham's questions. This isn't anything new. This has been a concern and something that hasn't been addressed for years now. Colorado is more time than any. And yes, it will take a long time to implement. But instead of being in this morass of questions and uncertainty and gray areas, especially state to state, if we are aligned on a system and we begin to implement that system, at least we're moving in the right direction to setting up a system that's workable within our industry. And who knows if it's going to go outside our state, but at least we're trying to figure it out. In Colorado, like we've done so many times before in this room, we come up with ideas, we turn it into rules and regs, we roll them out, and all of a sudden, in our own way, we've been leading the industry nationally. A lot of states don't integrate what we put together into their system, but that's okay. We've come up with it here, we've talked about it, we've addressed very complex issues and problems, and they don't get solved overnight. But over the next year or two, even when it's legal nationally, they don't know how to, you know, the lawmakers are not going to know how to transport finished goods around or partially finished goods around when it's more than 0.3% THC.
I guess from a business perspective, we've never really had any issues with transportation. So that's where I kind of revert and say, for us, this doesn't seem necessary. Maybe we're really integrated though. What's that? You're vertically integrated for the most part. For the most part, but that's.
So when you make a concentrate, okay,
We dilute it before we ship it down to point.
but you do everything in-house, correct?
Nearly.
Yes.
Okay, nearly. Do you ever transport coming in or going out crude distillate?
No, I always dilute it. Because it's considered marijuana, but you can't risk it, especially now.
So what you're doing is what is forced to be done, which is what we do. We do everything under one roof. But if you transport a kilogram of crude to a candy maker or whatever, even if it's a block away, you're breaking the law. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is come up with a way where the processors in the country or in the state are not forced to do everything under one roof, where you have flexibility. And it's all legal, it's all legit, and it may be hot, it's at 0.3%, but you've got the registration form, and the authorities will know it's going from point A to point B, and point B has to dilute it and make it legal. And then it can be distributed.
From the DOT,
Yes.
from a DOT perspective on transportation and stuff, I see it creating a heck of a mess. That's just the outside looking in, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I've been in the other hydrocarbon industry for 40 years, and transportation is a huge, obviously cost. You know, dilution up front seems way better of a solution on the tail.
It's a pain, don't get me wrong, but
Oh, yeah.
I also just think philosophically, the more and more we keep treating hemp like this demonized plant, it's so I don't want it is. I think I'm just philosophically kind of against that. It's also stupid.
Do we have another comment?
I know Jim's gotta leave.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've gotten to this point in a conversation where it's, I feel like I want to be engaged in this, but I just want to just emphasize what Dwayne pointed out, that this multi-state stakeholder group that met here last month, coordinated by the governor's office, is one forum to complement the discussion that happens here at the Hemp Advisory Committee on this very set of issues. And you all raise key philosophical concerns about how you go here. All I want to say, though, particularly from MED's perspective, we can be a resource to you all. We have experience with Metric, we have experience with manifesting some of the same issues that you're wrestling with. Clearly, we're a law enforcement agency, so we have an appreciation for some of the things that law enforcement on the road or on the street are confronting. So to the extent that we can be a resource to you all as you go down this conversation, and to the extent that Dwayne and I can have a conversation about how does, with Dominique Mendiola from the governor's office, how we can help support this conversation, whether it's useful or not, we're ready to be a service to you, because we realize it's a challenge, and at least you all are acknowledging these are serious challenges that we probably need to have a conversation about, that we probably haven't certainly we've seen in the MED side for the last few years, and we appreciate you all being part of that. So.
Thank you. We only have 15 minutes left, so I just want to see if there's any other committee members that have issues they want to raise.
Happen to put the statute in the supplemental, the one that I was talking about?
I did.
No worries, I'll look it up. Okay, 35, 61, 105, 2. Uh, 105, 1B, okay. Along with, at least annually and more often as required by the commissioner, a person who obtains a registration under this article to engage in industrial hemp cultivation for commercial purposes shall file with the department a report that includes the following, and this is the part B, documentation demonstrating that the registrant has entered into a purchase agreement with an in-state industrial hemp processor. Now, we've never actually moved on this because, like, up until last year, CDPHE, there was the idea that it was adulterated and we couldn't actually sell CBD products and hemp and yada, yada, yada. Now that House Bill 1295 is in effect and hemp is considered a food and people have to get registered with CDPHE, and I still find people, there are a ton of groups that are not registered or licensed with CDPHE. This statute comes in pretty handily in that it would be useful for the CDA to require this to demonstrate that the processor that they're using is legitimately licensed with CDPHE. And that way we can have that, we can start to have that pathway regulated properly. The catch with this statute is it says purchase agreement with an in-state processor. Now, in-state processor is not an issue, but what if it's not a purchase agreement, right? What if you partner with that processor to process that stuff for you? Are you in violation of the state statute? I don't know the answer to that. I would think yes, you are in violation of that, and you're not reporting it to the CDA. So my thought is, and this is something that Dwayne and I talked about 3 years ago that really now has actually come to fruition, that by putting that on there so that when you either harvest or when you get rid of your product to a processor, providing that to the CDA knows that that product went to a legitimate licensed business, then there's a guarantee that that product will not then be considered adulterated, right? Because if you're not licensed,
This guy just left. Do you want to sit down?
all food companies.
Yeah, I'm just making sure. that
Yeah,
we're not
any
getting this-
any manufacturer has to be licensed with CDPHE. Now, like a farmer who grows corn and then sells to like a grain mill, they don't have to track that. But the statutory language in here says you do. And so I guess what you're saying is that you disagree with that statutory language, that shouldn't be in there. Well, I disagree that it shouldn't be in there also, because I think it's written incorrectly. I can't talk to you about this outside of this meeting, so let's talk about this now.
Well done.
I regularly actually I haven't this year. This is the first year of someone
You've been very good.
that nobody called me and was kind of like, I can't talk to you about this. Okay, because technically that statutory language needs to change in some fashion. Why are you against demonstrating to the CDA that you're partnered with a licensed facility, considering there are so many unlicensed facilities out there?
Because doesn't CDA's purview is done after testing in every other case, right? I'm just trying to treat this as much as we can like a committed commodity, because that's where the regulation should sit. I'm all about quality control for the finished product, absolutely. We just serve the U.S. Hemp Authority, which is basically going to give marketing assets to companies that can meet muster and pass a CGMP audit. But I think that should be industry self-regulation as opposed to being imposed by any state agency. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
Well, I don't disagree on the imposition. I mean, that's up to an agency to make a determination of what level of standards they meet. We have requirements that they meet. If they do their own internal audit to validate that, I think that's fine. I think part of the statute in the Industrial Hemp Act was ahead of its time in the consideration of industrial hemp products before there was an allowance in law for those to be allowed. I think at this point now, whether we have good relationships and communicate, whether there's a statutory requirement for that to be codified and connected, or it's just their interaction after harvest, they're done at extraction and post extraction, we have authority over it. I'm not sure if that needs to be statutorily mandated or not. I think the inference in the statute now is it is.
Yeah.
We're not exercising that at this time between agencies.
Well, this kind of goes to, I guess, a little bit to Ed's too, right? Because if you can show that you're going to a licensed CDPHE register or licensee, then that helps with all that too. But at the same time, it's corn or carrots, then it's outside of that.
The Farm Bill, apparently, you're right, I've been told it allows in some way for interstate commerce, at least in seed, possibly.
It should be every.
Once that is established, all of this is for naught, because a processor in Kansas cannot be licensed by CDPHE.